The Federal Endangered Species Act, or ESA, has been called one of the most economically damaging laws facing American livestock producers. When a species is listed as threatened or endangered, the resulting use restrictions placed on land and water can be crippling to a rancher. But with cooperative action, ranchers and conservationists can work together in restoring wildlife habitat and potentially avoiding an ESA designation. We learn more about the issue and the sage grouse initiative from Cattleman to Cattleman reporter Brad Bulla.
The West was once covered in sagebrush, and the greater sage grouse thrived. Now, though you can still find plenty of sage, invasive juniper trees have spread across the land. The juniper, along with increased development, larger scale fires, and other issues, have resulted in a major decline in sage grouse populations.
Sage grouse have been in decline for really 50 years in parts of the West, and they occur across 11 western states, from South Dakota, North Dakota, all the way to California and Washington. But populations are cyclical, go up and down, but the trend over time has been declining. We've lost 50% of the historic habitat, and so the concern over sage grouse is that at some point we keep dwindling down to smaller and smaller populations, and it's just harder to keep the species connected and persistent across its historic range.
In 2010, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service determined that the sage grouse warranted protection under the Endangered Species Act, but held off listing the bird at that time. That leaves the issue still an open question, and a threat to those who rely on the land for their livelihood.
So I'm confident we can run cattle and be compatible with the sage grouse that are out here, but if we see a listing, I'm not quite so confident that we can jump through the hoops of the Endangered Species Act and stay clear of litigation and the other problems that would be caused by having to work with the Endangered Species Act on these permits.
We're very concerned that if the bird is listed, it could have very negative impacts and lead to drastic cuts in livestock grazing on federal land. So we're engaged in that process. The decision by the Fish and Wildlife Service will be by September of 2015. So we're on a bit of a short timeline here on working with the agencies to ensure that whatever happens with the sage grouse does not negatively impact livestock.
But that also gave us a window of opportunity to go implement enough of the right practices in the right places to maybe stabilize sage grouse populations, protect habitat, and hopefully preclude the need to list the species altogether. And the species is up for review again in September of 2015, where the Fish and Wildlife Service will make a final determination as to whether or not it needs federal regulatory protection.
Now, with funding from NRCS, ranchers in much of the West are taking action that will help improve livestock grazing and at the same time improve habitat for the sage grouse. One example is large-scale removal of invasive juniper trees with mechanical means, fire, and chemical treatments.
To date, we've engaged over 700 individual ranches across 11 western states, from the Dakotas all the way to the Pacific Coast. And we've implemented through ranchers over 2 million acres of improved grazing systems, over 200,000 acres of highly targeted juniper removal.
Well, we've been working at the junipers for a long time, probably for 35 years, and we chipped away at them, and it hasn't been till recently when the NRCS and the Sage Grouse Initiative was established that we could really dive into it on a landscape scale. But now we can just block out, several hundred acres and just remove juniper, and that of course removes the seed source and creates a landscape change in the habitat, and it's good for us, but it really fits what the sage grouse needs. So it's been great that way that we've had the NRCS to partner with and really do this.
We really believe in the shared vision that we have here, which is that, what's good for rangelands is good for sage grouse. And so a lot of the things that are threatening sage grouse also happen to undermine the viability of a livestock ranch. And so when we deal with things like weeds or invasive juniper, we're also helping to make that ranch more sustainable while shoring up our wildlife populations, our watersheds, and other resources.
On ranches across the West, the land is changing, and in many places, the sage grouse is returning. The hope is that enough progress can be made by September of 2015 that the Fish and Wildlife Service will make the decision not to list the sage grouse as an endangered species.
There's really more at stake here than just a species. What we're trying to do is demonstrate that voluntary and proactive conservation done by all the partners can turn the tide on the Endangered Species Act process.
And it's important and ranchers are in a unique spot to make a difference. And all throughout the West, you see places where ranchers are doing just that. And hopefully this will get credit for all that's happened, and a lot more will happen between now and 2015 September when the decision's made, and we'll see ranching go on, and we'll see sage grouse go on, and we'll have more generations of both.
In sage grouse and cattle country in Southern Oregon, I'm Brad Bullitt for NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
To keep up on issues such as the sage grouse and the Endangered Species Act, why not join NCBA? You can find out more by calling 1-866-USA-BEEF or by visiting the website beefusa.org.